Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. The Earth's soil is vital to our natural environment and critical to our survival. Soil filters our water, it provides habitat for billions of important organisms, and it is the foundation of our food system. To maintain healthy, productive soils and to share critical information with farmers and others, UVM Extension's Northwest Crops and Soils team hosts a yearly field day. On Thursday, July 27th, the Extension team will offer its 10th annual Crops and Soils Field Day at the Borderview Research Farm in Alberg. For more information on the event, here's Across the Fence's Keith Silva.
Visitors show up in droves to the Borderview Research Farm in Alberg. Some are on foot, while others ride in style. Either way, they're all here to see how the University of Vermont Extension is growing.
We're hoping that you can plant towards the end of September.
The University of Vermont Extension Crop and Soils Field Day is an annual event where farmers, researchers, and agricultural professionals gather to learn, to network, and to have fun. There are over 2,000 plots on display, everything from sunflowers and hops to flaxseed and corn. UVM Extension agronomist Heather Darby hosted the first field day here in 2005, and like a seed, it's grown.
I think there might have been 25 of us, and we all were standing around each other, talking about the research plots, and I just started thinking to myself, I really want this field day to be like a farm progress show. From the field days, you can see that people want to learn, they want to see it in action, they want to see it live in the summertime, they don't want to hear about it this winter. Every year I think, okay, what's that next thing that we're going to do? In some ways to really wow people, to really grab their attention and get them thinking about, oh, I could do that, or oh, maybe that's something I want to try.
The increasing interest in craft brewed beer has Alden Harwood thinking about growing hops on his farm in Addison.
Just looks like a pretty good return on investment, and I like beer too, so I got an ulterior motive, I guess. I've never been big on niche markets, but I don't really consider hops to be a niche market. I think it's more just of the local movement, and the bigger breweries, they're not interested in the people around here, but the smaller brewers are saying, yeah, you bring me something, I like it, I'll buy it, right off the back of your truck. And I see the whole local food movement is really taken off.
Christian Stanley traveled all the way from Massachusetts to take part in this one-of-a-kind occasion.
I would say the UVM programs that they put on are, the best around New England, because no other state is committed to, at least that I know of. I mean, they might have things in Maine, but at least in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, Connecticut, UVM is an exception, and they can share knowledge between farmers. They have an active ag extension program that is really reaching out to people and really creating a community where they can share information, share knowledge, and also do research so that you can be directed in the right direction instead of going down a path where you're just not going to be successful, really helping people be successful.
Experiments at the Borderview Farm to grow wheat and rye have helped small grain growers like David Kenyon of the Nitty Gritty Grain Company establish a new industry in Vermont's working landscape.
Yeah, it's a great benefit for us to have the extension because we can go right to them. Otherwise, we have no one to call. We're not going to call up somebody in the Midwest and say, oh, hey, I have 150 acres of wheat, and they laugh at you. It's also problems that are specific to this area, and they can't offer their expertise from there. We need someone with the local knowledge.
This is a real thing that's going on.
Roger Rainville is the farm's owner, a longtime dairy farmer turned agricultural researcher. Rainville is committed to making sure that the research being done here makes a difference for farmers.
One thing people need to know too is that nothing is done here unless farmers want it. This is something farmers have asked for, and they want to see the results. So that's why we put our best foot forward and try to get them as accurate a result as we can. This is real stuff. There's nothing more gratifying than that. It's not about money. It's about, wow, look at this farm. They're using that practice they learned from what we studied. Wow, that's great. That's great.
About planting more than you need,
Yep. Hannah Harwood has been working all summer on oilseed trials. Her research is on how best to control pests and to get the most out of these sunny and versatile crops.
We're sort of trying to come up with a good system for growing a lot of oilseeds. And on a small scale, we've got problems with bird damage and pests, that sort of thing. So we're sort of fine-tuning agronomic practices for those crops. Farmers can sort of get two bangs for their buck out of a harvest of oilseed. They can harvest the seed, press it for oil, and then use the meal that's left over as a biofuel or as a feed for livestock, as a weed suppressant or an organic nitrogen supplement to their crops. So we're sort of figuring out all of those fine-tuned details of how to grow it and what to use it for.
So over in the back there, if you're interested.
Darby and the Northwest Crop and Soils team work on cutting-edge agricultural practices and use old-fashioned grassroots efforts to put what they learn to work for everyone.
I feel like I'm meeting the needs and answering the questions of the farming community. And the farming community are dairy farmers, sheep farmers, goat farmers, vegetable farmers, grain growers, hop growers, meeting the needs of the end users, the people that are buying food, that want to buy food, processing food. And so it's really about, addressing the needs of the Vermont community. That's what Extension is all about.
And we're still learning about that.
At Borderview Farm, growing and education go hand in hand. You could say that it's an extension of the learning process. In Alberg, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
The 10th Annual Extension Crops and Soils Field Day is Thursday, July 27th at Borderview Farm in Alberg. For more information or to register for the field day, check the website that's listed on your screen. We move now from soil to water. In our next segment, we'll learn about blue-green algae blooms that have gotten a lot of public attention, in part because of the potential health dangers. For more than a decade, the Lake Champlain Committee has trained citizen volunteers to monitor for the algae at various locations around the lake. Those volunteers, along with staff from the Vermont Departments of Health and Environmental Conservation, file weekly online reports that are accessible to the public. The program not only helps assess the safety of our beaches, it also provides important data to help scientists further understand when and why blooms occur. Rebecca Gollin tells us more.
For a landlocked state, summertime in Vermont offers all sorts of water-based recreation. The many lakes, rivers, and swimming holes around the state provide opportunities to cool down wherever you are. But anyone who spends time on the water in Vermont knows that the quality of that water can change quickly.
It could be greener than pea soup here on Tuesday, and it could be crystal clear on Saturday.
Mike Roach is a volunteer water quality monitor on Missisquoi Bay. One of the biggest issues for Lake Champlain, and certainly the one that's in the news the most, is blue-green algae.
The title blue-green algae is actually a little bit of a misnomer because it's not an algae, it's a cyanobacteria. It's a bacterium, cyanobacteria. It is a planktonic organism, which means it floats in the water column and can't swim. It photosynthesizes, so it's taking its energy from the sun.
Mike Winslow is a scientist with the Lake Champlain Committee, the organization that oversees the monitoring program. He and his team train volunteers around the state how to spot and identify areas of concern.
They look like a paint spilled on the water. There's no structure to the bloom itself. If you were to take a stick and try to lift it up, it would just drip right off the stick and not stay. Maybe coat it like paint, but you're not going to see any individual stringy things hanging off.
Identifying potentially harmful algae can be tricky because it's naturally present in the lake anyway, and not all concentrations or blooms release harmful toxins. The algae can also move in and out of areas very rapidly.
The blooms are triggered by high nutrient levels, high water temperatures, and still water. So we'll get a period of heat wave, you're more likely to see a bloom. You get areas of the lake with higher nutrient concentrations like Missisquoi Bay, St. Albans Bay, you're more likely to see blooms there. Under some conditions, which we don't really understand, the algae produce substances that are toxic.
When the blooms do become toxic, children and pets are the most vulnerable, although anyone can be affected.
The toxins generally cause gastrointestinal illness, vomiting, diarrhea. They can, if inhaled, cause respiratory distress, sort of like an allergy. So you get sore throat, runny nose, watery eyes, something like that.
Winslow says that while toxic algae is, and should be, a cause for concern. The good news is that most of the time, and in most parts of the lake, there is no need for concern.
We received over 600 reports during the 2013 monitoring season, and fewer than 3% actually reported back that they saw blooms.
Those that did see blooms were likely to be in areas like St. Albans and Missisquoi Bay, where shallow water, heat, nutrient overload, and just the right wind direction causes regular outbreaks. Bob Martell lives in Alberg, where he's been a volunteer water quality monitor for 8 years.
72.2. Take a good look at it, the area around, see if there's any algae, any indications of it, check the water temperature, record that, and then fill out the online report.
Martell says that while he hasn't seen the very large blooms that can occur, he has seen a number of smaller accumulations.
We've had some episodes where it maybe stayed around for a couple of days, and then it dissipated, and it was good for the rest of the season, or till the next episode. But there weren't that many.
What are some of the things that you've seen?
I have seen clear water somewhat. I'll show you some of that. I have seen putrid green water that would just stick to you. It sticks to your legs, smells, and it's horrible. I mean, those are the spectrum, basically, and anything in between.
Roach and Martell report their observations to the Lake Champlain Committee and enter their findings online for an interactive map maintained by the Vermont Department of Health. Alongside the monitor's observations are data and reports from scientists from around the state as well as New York. This kind of collaboration is key in the effort to keep tabs on the water quality of the lake.
So we're looking at water that people are most likely to be in contact with when they're kayaking and swimming.
Angela Shambow is an aquatic biologist with the state of Vermont. She spends a lot of time traveling to sites around the lake, taking samples and testing the water quality. Although the visual monitoring the volunteers are doing can provide a great deal of information, there's no way to tell without testing in a lab what kind of algae is present and whether it's toxic.
I think we probably have more than 150 different kinds of algae that we've documented on Lake Champlain over the course of the time that we've been checking. So the primary data that we collect each year from mid-April through early November is things like phosphorus, nitrogen, silica, chlorophyll, all the kinds of bits and pieces of data that will tell us what the water quality in Lake Champlain is like.
On this day, Shambow and fellow aquatic biologist Pete Stengel are visiting several of the 15 stations they monitor regularly.
Lake Champlain overall has really good water quality. We're concerned about it. We don't want it to deteriorate, which is why we do talk a lot about what you can do to protect water quality. We're quite fortunate. There really are only 2 locations on Lake Champlain that have thick, dense blooms that persist for a period of days to weeks rather than just disappearing relatively quickly, and those are St. Albans and Missisquoi Bay. And in those locations are where we have found the toxins at concentrations where we are concerned. Doesn't happen every year, doesn't happen every year at the same time, and that's what makes it so difficult, which is why people are concerned. But in the last 2 years, since I've been coordinating the cyanobacteria program, more than 90% of the reports that we get back each summer show that the water that the volunteers are assessing at their feet and that Pete and I are seeing out on the lake is considered generally safe. It's not that cyanobacteria aren't there, they probably are, but not at concentrations that we're worried about.
The data collected by all of these groups over time gives lake water quality experts the big picture of the lake's health.
We do produce an end of the season report each year that looks at the number of reports that we received, what percentage were Category 1 clear water, what percentage were Category 2 a little bit of algae, which were Category 3 full-blown blooms.
These scientists and citizen volunteers are keeping a trained eye on the water and helping protect the health of the lake, the people, and the economy of Vermont. In Burlington, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thank you for joining us. That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence. you.